Welcome to the Blooming League of Original Podcasts.
G'day and welcome to an extra new sounding edition of Thrash and Treasure, the Torture Chamber musical comedy podcast. What? Oh no, it's not even on this page. All right, I'm going to have to say this one. I'm so sorry, Sharon, for this joke. The Torture Chamber musical comedy podcast, which stole the cookie from the cookie jar because I was really hungry. And speaking of really hung, I'm so sorry. I'm Aaron, and I'm joined as usual by the male equivalent of Rose Havoc. It's Steve, the stage dad. How's it going?
Hey, everybody. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so sorry about that. The listeners at home, I had another one written, which was to put the rash in thrash. And speaking of rash, I'm itchy. That was going to be the joke. So I remembered that, but it was the getting up to that point that I didn't remember. So anyways, you are our newest co-host. Welcome to the show, Stephen. How you doing?
Thank you for inviting me to be part of this party. This is going to be a lot of fun.
No, I'm absolutely thrilled because you have got your own podcast, the Music Rewind podcast, which we're going to plug later in the show, obviously. But for listeners at home, first off, listen to this episode. But I want to quickly throw in there that recently, as you know, my dog had a hip replacement. We had to buy a pool for hydrotherapy. We set the pool up. It was much bigger than what we were expecting. Much bigger. It's like 1.5 meters high. We're like, shit. It's like 3 meters wide. Shit. It doesn't even fit in our backyard. So it's literally on a slant in our backyard. Right. So me being the only able-bodied one, when I say able-bodied one, I mean I'm like literally the disabled one in the family. I'm the one who had to put it up, which I did. Got it going. It was all smooth and realized, oh shit, there's a rock underneath it right in the fucking middle. It's this whole Princess and the Pea thing because the rock was about this big, which probably about almost an inch big, right? And it was sharp and you could feel it every time you walked over it or even just put your finger over it. So we then hooked the hose up to the drainage thing, which was a whole argument with my dad because, you know, I'm younger than him. He knows best, of course. But then if I say, I know this is how it is, he goes, oh, you know everything, don't you? The drainage was at the bottom, Dad. So we got there. We got the hose hooked up down the driveway, but it was going so slowly and he wasn't satisfied. So he said, take it out and put it in the pool and we'll siphon it through. Got to be really quick about it. So we did that. Nothing happened. We wasted 1.5 hours. By this point, it was 12 hours of work. Let's just say that. And we'd been in the pool once. Anyway, and it was like literally like about this far from the top. So it was almost filled up. Anyway, so I said, this isn't working. So we hooked up the hose to the tap, turned it on, let the water run through into the pool, quickly turned the tap off, took out the hose and let the water siphon through, which dribbled through. It absolutely dribbled through. So no joke, I spent Saturday and Sunday getting a bucket, emptying out the pool, tossing it into the garden, which we had torrential rain in Melbourne at the time. So it was pointless. I just flooded the fucking garden, didn't I, right? But then it was probably about 9 o'clock at night that I realized, hang on a second, if I fill up the water burrow and put the hose in the water burrow, we can siphon the water out of the wheelbarrow and I don't have to keep going to the garden and filling that up. So anyways, we got it done, wasted a whole bunch of time, lifted up the pool, right? And it wasn't even a rock. It was one of those itchy bombs from a tree, which Sharon, you might know what they are. They're like those things on a tree that when you grab them, they like give you a rash, like little prickly things. We call them itchy bombs because as kids, we used to throw them at each other and make each other really itchy all over. Like we were horrible.
We call them the spiky things here.
The spiky things. Yes, those
the spiky things.
They look like fruit, but they're not. Do not eat them, kids. So anyways, it was a whole Princess and the Pea thing with a fucking itchy bomb. I'm so tired. My body is so sore. I was not built to empty a pool with a bucket. Anyway, so I just had to throw that in there.
It has to be on a t-shirt. I was not born to empty a pool with a bucket. And there's some sort of meaning behind that.
Tell me about it. I'll give you 10% for that. But anyways, guess what?
What?
We have another legendary Aussie diva on the throne tonight. And with this queen here, we're divorced, beheaded, dead, excited. Because this bathing beauty burst into the business like the perfectionist, like bombshells do, but only if you're willing and able. So let's jump in our winner's bago and make like a gypsy on Earthwatch as we leave home and away we go on Mission Thraxonia, hunting for the snark, which took this roller skating robot on a West Side Story adventure into the woods before ending up somewhere around the world in 80 days' time and pippin Australia's leading ladies at the post in the Appleston Ladies Potato Race, north by northwest of Chicago. Chicago, where her cell block tango got tangled up with Tango. But don't worry, it's strictly ballroom for the last of the red hot lovers, because Jimmy and Gret don't do sex. It's more like a combo fiasco or a Picasso. Talk about a wild party. I remember my first time with that beauty and beast, aka Catherine Kim Dorella. Yet while Brett gets a second chance, Divine is dead. But luckily, Divinity has entered the group chat, so it's hats off, ready for some sweet charity as we say a huge local "G'day, big spender," along with some small mouse sounds. Then take a breath in as Zigbee goes down like Colleen the hippo, then rises with a splash on the beach like Shirley Valentine to ponder love, loss, and why I wore these budgie smugglers. So before someone calls the cops LAC on me, but after they're playing our song, it's Oscar's turn to sing his kooky tunes in that falsettos to make the fangirls and cats cry out, I want the album, I want a broadcast, cuckoo, kachoo. Bless me and bless this RBG, really brave goddess, who is one of many to enter our Rocky Horror Torture Chamber show, having touched upon an epic career as an actor, singer, dancer, choreographer, and resident director, plus Marlene Dietrich, pop diva, who literally made Christine Daae in The Phantom of the Opera and Love Never Dies. But since this intro has more puns than Eastwood has sons and daughters, there is nothing left but to name drop Aladdin, since our wish has been granted because we're joined by the marvelously magical and magically marvelous Sharon Millerchip. Yay! Welcome to the Torture Chamber. How you
Oh
going?
my gosh, far out. Honestly, I'm sure everybody says the same thing, but there are credits in there that I had absolutely completely forgotten that I never touched on. My personal favourite in there, I have to say, that Pippin at the post of the leading ladies.
Yep.
Very nice.
Thank you very much. I tell you what,
Very
because
nice.
of that pool, usually I'm well, well prepared. Because of that pool taking up my time, I literally finished that at 11 a.m. this morning.
Well, credit to you. Nicely done.
And I actually got through it fairly well. I felt like I was going to drool through it, but
That was great. Well done. Well done.
luckily I didn't. But yes, so I'm glad you enjoyed it. I did warn you beforehand.
I'll have a copy of that. Thank you very much.
Awesome. I love that. It's my favorite thing to hear, apart from here's your check. Anyways, how are you going? Where's my script? Somewhere here.
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, we sort of touched on, the universe has had sort of some dastardly plan for me in the second half of this year, but I seem to be coming out the other side and things are all looking up. Injury and illness and, catastrophe and all sorts of things, but that's just the rich tapestry of life, I guess, isn't it?
That it, unfortunately,
And here we are.
is the roller coaster that is. It's been a roller coaster for all of us this year, because in the meantime I lost my sister, then I lost a whole bunch of other people. It's been like my mum's going blind and deaf, my dad's in and out of hospital. I totally get it, Sharon. I really do. When life hits you, it says bitch and smacks you across the face, something chronic, and then you end up with an itchy bomb underneath your bloody dog's pool. Oh my god.
I mean, I think it's a metaphor for something. I think that emptying the pool with a bucket thing metaphor is got something to do with, summing up the year that we've had.
Oh, I'll tell you about it. Like I'm skinny as, and if the dog hadn't been a wuss and wouldn't jump into cars, I wouldn't have to have lifted her up over the past 3 or 4 months of taking her to the vet. So I've actually built up a few muscles over the past couple of months, lifting up a 30-kilogram border collie.
30 kilos. I've got one of them at my house. I've got maybe not quite 30 kilos, but I do have a border collie around here somewhere well, my husband owns an organic butchery. Yeah. So she's a pretty well-fed little border collie, this one.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. Well, my one, actually, her name is Belle, which is also the mug I'm using right now. And the t-shirt I have is Beauty and the Beast, because you were in Beauty and the Beast. But before I get to that, for the listeners at home, Sharon, you're obviously recovering from an injury, but you're not our first injured guest. We've had broken knees, sprained ankles, a broken wrist, and lots of broken spirits along the way. So you're not alone, I promise you.
I think my spirit's intact, but yeah, broken bones, but spirit's intact, just.
Yeah, I know I had seen you in Love Never Dies at the Melbourne production, which I talked about many times. Shout out to our friend Glenn Slater, who was on the show recently. Now, you and I actually tried to work out whether or not I had seen you in Beauty and the Beast in 96 in Melbourne.
Well, I took over for the last 4 months of Melbourne, so it would have been I can't remember the exact dates, but it was the last 4 months of Melbourne and obviously all of Sydney. Open Sydney. So I don't know. I mean, you were just a wee child. So I wouldn't expect you to remember what date it was either, because I think you were under 10, weren't you?
Where were you 30 years ago?
I was 11 years old. I'm going to be 40 in a couple of months. Thank you for reminding me. Oh no, my life is over. No, because it was the second time I'd seen it. I'd seen it originally in 95. I think that might have been like my 10th birthday present. And then I saw it again the year later.
Right.
And your name is so like it sticks out. I've always, every time I've noticed it, I don't know, it has this ring to it. It's Millerchip. It's really nice to.
There's not many out there.
Well, no, it's unique, but it sort of has that je ne sais quoi to say it, if you will. So it's always stuck out.
Oh, well, that's good, because I've always thought, what a weird, odd stage name. You know, who would pick that name? It's a weird one, but people remember it. They do remember it, I have to say.
Yeah. So if anyone had said to me before the past sort of couple of months that we've been talking about and doing this episode, if anyone had said to me, had you seen Sharon Millerchip, I would have said straight away, Love Never Dies and Beauty and the Beast, with complete confidence. But the jury is still out because...
Okay.
I would have said at the time, though, that one of the silly girls in the original production. So I was mixing up the two, but I, with complete confidence, knew I had seen you in it. So I must have seen you as Belle. I must have done.
Towards the end of the Melbourne season.
Yeah.
I guess. If you did, then yeah.
Yeah. And over the years, I've conflated you with the silly girls in the first run and then having taken over in Sydney.
Never a silly girl. No.
Well, not on stage anyways, I hear. So, sorry.
Only on the inside.
That's just time and memory gets mixed up, I think. And yeah, I would have said it with complete confidence, but no, I must have seen you as Belle.
Well, if you loved it, we'll say yes, you did.
Yes.
I mean, you would have loved it anyway, because Rachel Beck, who played it before I joined up, is like my bestie. I mean, we're godmother to each other's children.
That's cool.
So either way, you would have had a great experience, I'm sure.
Yep, I did. No, but anyways, we'll move on. I do have a hat from that production from seeing it in 96 too. So it would have been from seeing you as Belle, which is somewhere. I had it recently because I took a photo of it on Instagram. But anyways, I'm all decked out in my Beauty and Beast t-shirt, but we're going to move on now because speaking of beasts, we're going to move on to the metal. Now, you mentioned something to me about your favorite metal albums. Does that mean you're a closeted metalhead that you're not telling us?
No, I'm so sorry. I think I might have been being sarcastic.
Okay.
I think I was referring to, like, let me just, flip through my favorite metal albums to pick my favorite for you. No, I'm not a huge connoisseur of metal. I mean, and this may be insulting, and I don't know because, I'm not part of the sort of metal culture, but I really love Muse, which for me kind of feels like a really sort of lightweight kind of version. I mean, that sort of robust sort of theatricality and the sort of the epic, stylistically, the epic nature of music things and the orchestral kind of leans itself, I kind of think, into metal, which is like a gateway drug possibly to something like music theatre, because it sort of reaches in and grabs you by the heart and then yanks it back out. There's nothing sort of half measure.
It is very dramatic.
Yeah.
All emos are drama queens. I'm going to say it.
I see it. I absolutely see it. I see why there is a parallel between the drama of the heavy metal and music theatre, certainly. I know I'm not the first person to point that out to you, but it certainly is, it's just a fact.
It is. And like this show was started just on a whim, just saying to my friend, why haven't we done a podcast together? I was like, well, what are we going to do? I'm like, metal versus musicals. Like, it was literally just pulled the idea out of me, but pardon the expression, but it was not something I put thought into, let's just say. Not like usually I would sit down and brainstorm. It just came to me instinctively. And then I thought about it. Yes. Metal is so theatrical, and theatre in a lot of ways is so metal because when you look at the history of musical theatre, things like Hair, that was so metal of its time because it pissed everyone off, and that's what metal does. It should piss off the man, really.
Well, and there's a lot of voices that transfer too.
Absolutely.
From one to the other. I mean, we were talking the other day about Rocky Horror, and the one we were talking about had Joan Jett and then later on Sebastian Bach. I mean, those voices just transfer over so well.
That absolutely do. There's something, that sort of that huge sound, like the evocative, the drama of an incredible voice is definitely typical to both genres for sure. I mean, that's something that I totally equate with heavy metal music. I mean, you've got that, I don't know, there's that throat rasp thing that I don't know how anybody's sort of getting through without nodules, but I know that there's a technique to it. So even the fact that there is a technique suggests that it's, an elevated art form.
A lot of childhood trauma.
Is that what it is?
So if you could pick your ultimate, most over-the-top rock star rider, what would you put on it? Backstage, sitting there, ready for you, and it cannot be water. The most obnoxious, it's just...
Oh, get out.
Yeah, we don't want humble.
Yeah.
I know, but I know that's... Honestly, I get it. Humble is... God, that's so boring. What could I get? Oh, look, I tell you, I guess food. That's so boring. I know that's really boring. But I tell you what, between shows, the harder thing is you've got, your hair in pink curls. You've got to go out into the world and go to Woolies and grab a sandwich and a salad in a plastic cup. And that's to fuel you for the second show because, it's hard to just get food on the fly. I would have a full-time chef.
Nice.
I would have a chef that would come in there and they would cook me, I don't know, macrobiotic, keto, whatever, something that would fuel me, lots of white rice to get me through the second show. I'd have a masseuse, and how about, I don't know, some kind of life coach. Because I think performing music theatre by nature is just such a mind fuck. There's my first fuck. Because of the repetitive nature of it, that there is, you really have to sort of process that kind of repetition so that you don't start to self-cannibalize. And I think having an on-hand, psych to help you process that and work through it and find interesting ways to keep rebooting your performance would be really handy. Is that rock star enough? Or that's a bit...
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
That's a bit woo-woo, isn't it? But there we go.
No, that's fun. That's the bigger the better. I egg our guests on. And some people were like, oh, I don't know. I'm far too humble and I don't want to request. I'm like, you're not fooling me. Just use your imagination. Even if you say like a herd of goats, I will praise the heavens because yes, animals. I love animals. Sorry, Stephen, you're gonna.
Yeah, I'm just picturing Gordon Ramsay, going on tour to be backstage for the Star with a special meal after every performance.
Tell me I'm wrong.
That's perfect.
That's a reality show in the making there. I'd watch that.
Definitely. Anyways, we're going to move on now because we're going to move on to the metal album. And this week, I blindly picked Disturbed's Believe because I took you seriously when you said your favorite metal album. And I'm sort of thinking, well, okay, you obviously know metal then. You've got a favorite metal album. The time was ticking and because we know we're going to give the album to you and to my co-host. So I thought, all right, I'll pick something. And if you override it, then that's fine.
I think I said something like, you'll have to give me a hot minute to pick my favorite or something.
Yeah, something like that, right? So I did. I gave you like 2 or 3 days, and I'm like, oh, time's ticking. So I better pick something. And again, I don't really never want to come across as rude or pushy or anything like that. It's just like building a show up. So I picked this blindly. I didn't know what I was picking. So I picked Disturbed's Believe, and I've reviewed it this week. So when I first chose to get Disturbed, nobody was surprised. So I pushed the Spotify's buttons, expecting to scare my cat away, and instead was met with, not that. Feeling more hard rock than metal, I sunk a little. I mean, I'm not into metal, but I'm less about hard rock. And this, in the first 2 tracks, feels very radio-friendly. Sadly, the gra-gra-gra didn't awaken in the 3rd track, so I guess I just have to settle for being disturbed by this titular album and song, which sounds all too much like the 3 tracks before it, even at mid-tempo. So with a mid-tempo, I continue and listen numerous times, and it just feels so wholesome. Ugh. Not dirty, not scary, not aggressive, and not particularly dark. There's some decent melodies for this genre and a few exciting moments, but I can't say I've been baptized by anything other than the buckets of water I splashed on myself with that fucking pool. 2 stars. It was...
Wow. 2 stars.
I didn't feel it. I didn't feel... What did I say? Not non-threatening and not ballsy. And for a band called Disturbed, I wanted to be disturbed. I wanted not to be disturbed by middling hard rock. I'm going to get slaughtered on the social medias. Oh my God, what am I doing? I've already just been told off by a lot of people lately. I'm going to get told off again for this. But I signed up for something to scare the shit out of me, basically. And this didn't. This was so soft.
Well, I have to say, I thought, oh, you've been kind to me, and you're easing me in. Like if I heard a lot of this thing,
Oh no.
the first couple of songs I thought maybe not so, but certainly Believe, which initially I only thought you wanted me to listen to one song. So I've actually listened to that one song quite a few times. And it's a catchy song. Like I'm humming it.
Yeah.
I've been listening to it for a couple of days, and it's got like a really catchy little hook. That chorus of the I Believe. No, what's it? Into me. The chorus, into me, into me, into me. I like it. I actually like it. I thought, I don't think I'm the target audience, but I think I'm sort of enjoyed it. And of course, because I'm come from a music theatre background, I'm looking for the meaning in the lyric, obviously. So I'm dissecting the lyric and trying to figure what that's all about. And even that kind of resonated with me. I was surprised to see that it was written in 2002 because I could have imagined it was almost written about sort of the rise of sort of evangelical, super right-wing Christianity that's kind of pervading the world at the moment. And and while they're sort of professing this Christianity, they're actually moving further and further away from Christian values. That's what I got from the lyric anyway.
Yeah.
And I might be completely off the mark, but then that's what lyrics are for, aren't they? They're not necessarily meant to tell you exactly what they mean. They're just meant to spark, thought and musings.
Sharon, you are not off the mark at all. I was way out of field. I was like way over the MCG at bloody Richmond Station. What? I picked this because I thought, okay, well, you obviously know metal then if you've got favorite metal albums, so this won't scare you off. Like I wasn't trying not to scare you off. I just figured it would be hard and metal, and it wouldn't. Regardless of, like, I completely overthought it. I just did not read the sarcasm, and it's my fault.
No, not at all. I'm just such a good actor.
Well, that's true. But anyways, Stephen, what did you think of this? Because you may have had better luck than me. More in line with Sharon.
Well, this was an album I was familiar with, back from '02, and I remembered nothing of it, which tells you something right there.
Yes.
Whereas their previous album, The Sickness, was everywhere, Down with the Sickness. I mean, that album was hard and all over. I was in the Army at the time. It was all over the barracks. That was played a lot. And 2 years later, this one was just kind of there. It did sell well and everyone bought it, and then give it a listen and then fade away. And it didn't really have that edge that the first one had. It sounds good. You could tell in many of the tracks that he's trying to, I don't know the dude's name, David Draymond. He's adjusting his voice to evolve his voice, so you can hear him doing different things to, I don't know, maybe to save his voice.
Yep.
Because that's not, if you listen to The Sickness, that's not easy to sing at all.
No.
A lot of screaming.
I do know that one.
That's where I come down with, is that I remember this album and I've listened to this album, but I remember nothing about it.
Wow.
Which says a lot.
That says everything.
You remembered its existence.
Yes. Well, this is about when I dropped off of nu metal as well. I kind of drifted away from nu metal right around this time.
Oh, if I'd known it was nu metal.
Oh, yeah.
Because I went looking for funk metal, rhythmic metal, death metal, thrash metal. I'm sort of looking for some just band names that might be familiar that we haven't covered. Or
this was right in there with like Limp Bizkit and Papa Roach, that era of bands.
Oh, well, this is my fault. I do everything wrong. Oh, goodness me. No, well, look, it was okay. That's the thing. It wasn't
bad.
It wasn't bad. It just wasn't
memorable.
It wasn't great. It was just middle of the road. It was middling for me. So many of the songs sounded too much the same, which was just...
Yeah. I have to say, when I did scan through them, I couldn't, like the first sort of, 24 bars or something, I couldn't really tell one song from the other. There was a repetitiveness that didn't catch me.
It felt like they were influenced by Nickelback a bit.
Oh, I was going to say, this sounds a bit like Nickelback to me. And again, I don't know if that's like, a really big insult, but.
It is. I'm saying knowing it is. So if I put this up for that, I'm so sorry.
I'll give them credit for trying something different with their second album. It just didn't really land.
Okay, well, that's a different angle. I didn't know that they were trying something different because I don't have no other prior experience. Like, I know Down with the Sickness, but more so I know the Richard Cheese cover. So
I've heard that,
yeah,
like lounge style.
yeah. Like I said, so I don't know. There wasn't much to write home about. Let's just say there was nothing that stood out. Like last week, there was just one song in particular that we couldn't help but talk about because it was so impactful and powerful, and that's been the case for so many other albums that we've done. But this just wasn't.
Were you looking at Avril and the Stiffers last week?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, and Pippa had picked them.
But that's got a resonance for us because they're an Australian band, and so possibly we're more familiar. Actually, I watched How to Make Gravy last night, and they're featured in that.
Oh, are they?
actually.
I haven't
So
seen
they've
it.
hit the mainstream.
Was it How to Make Gravy?
There's a very famous Australian song written by Paul
Oh.
Kelly, who's just an institution in Australia called How to Make Gravy, and it's probably Australia's favourite Christmas song.
Oh,
And they've taken this song and they've created a film around the whole thing. Yeah.
I'm going to be 40 in April, and I did not know that.
Oh.
I just thought it was a reference, like it was to the plot in the film. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, no. The song definitely came first. The song has a place in the hearts of, well, maybe every Australian over 35. I don't know. It's an incredible song, incredible storytelling from Paul Kelly. Obviously.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I have to add that to my Christmas playlist.
when we're done here, I'm going to go listen to this song. I don't know of it, but now I want to.
Oh, please do. It's a really a very Australian take on, unsentimental take on Christmas. A bit like Tin Minchin. Tin Minchin's White in the Sun. That kind of.
If it's not mentioned in Bluey, I don't really know it.
Really?
Sorry.
Okay, do you remember the 80s? There was that whole Aussie explosion in America that you guys were obsessed with us for a novelty, and Young Einstein came about.
Yahoo Serious.
Yes,
Yeah.
see?
Yep.
There was a a song in that called Dumb Things. I lost my shirt, I pawned my rings.
I've done all the dumb things.
That's Paul Kelly. If you heard it again, you would recognize it. Now, hang on. Having said that, maybe it's not in Young Einstein. And again, my memory over time, I'm just so flustered from that bloody pool.
All I can remember from that movie is the end where he's singing like rock and roll music with his homemade guitar and stuff. So.
Okay, we're gonna look this up. We're gonna settle this. Dumb Things, Paul Kelly.
I watched the hell out of that movie when I was a kid. Loved it.
That's great film.
Me too. We used to at Warner Brothers Movie World. There used to be the Young Einstein house. It used to have water going uphill. Okay, it was used in Look Who's Talking and Young Einstein.
There you go. Well done.
I'm not stupid as much as what people on Threads are telling me that I am at the moment. Anyways, back to Disturbed. Yeah, there's nothing else to say, I don't think, really. Anyone else got anything to add? Because I certainly don't.
No, look, I enjoyed it as an experience, but it hasn't converted me to metal, and I'm sorry about that.
You just have to believe.
I just have to. That's it.
Well, it looks like we're not fangirls for Disturbed, so we're going to go to an ad break. From the producers of Thrash and Treasure, Around the World in 80 Plays, starring the adorable Lizzie B and Alfie Parker, and featuring the star of the show, Dolly the dog, they'll take you for a trip around the UK, exploring the rich arts and cultural history. But here is a sneak peek.
And this week we're in Edinburgh, Scotland. Scotland! Every theatre really has ghosts, but we're in Edinburgh. Edinburgh is known for its spooky ghosts. So why don't you...
Yeah, I've done my research, and I might have had an experience of my own.
Oh.
Right, so, I am a true believer. Alfie is definitely more sceptical, but I believe in ghosts wholeheartedly. Like, I love watching paranormal programs. We watch a lot of celebrity ghost hunters. I just love it. I just kind of think, like, what's the point in not believing?
Yeah, my issue, right, I want to believe that there is something there. I think ghosts is a nice idea.
As long as they're nice ghosts.
Yeah, as long as they're not throwing things around. You know, like, no, because they grab me legs and go, bleh, all of that.
That's never happened to you, has it?
No, but you hear stories of them being like, get out of my house, and they're rattling everything and all of that stuff, and it's just a bit...
Oh, please. Right, so anyway, theatre ghosts is like a massive thing. So I'd say probably every theatre in the world has a ghost.
Yeah.
But with Edinburgh being such a historical place, the Festival Theatre actually has 3 ghosts. And I had an experience with one of them, which I'll talk about later.
We had a brief experience.
Don't spoil it, okay?
Yeah, sorry.
Right, I'm going to talk to you about these ghosts. So the first one, the most famous ghost at the Edinburgh Festival Theatre is called the Great Lafayette. Lafayette? Hamilton reference for you. That's not who it is, but he's called the Great Lafayette. One of the most celebrated illusionists of the early 20th century. Do you know what an illusionist is, Alfie?
Yes, kind of like disappearing in smoke and, swords. And it's like a branch of magician, right? Yeah. Thank you.
So kind of like Houdini.
Yeah,
yes.
I wanted to say Houdini, but yeah.
Yeah, cool. He was the highest paid entertainer in theatre at the time.
When was this?
In the early 20th century. Okay. Do you know when that was?
Do I know when that was?
Yeah, what year are we sort of talking there? Early 20th century?
1920 something?
Earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 1900s.
Yeah, brilliant.
Right.
Well done. This is going quite well.
I've got my GCSEs.
And apparently he was a very lavish performer. And so that brought the audiences in, which kind of justify that he was getting paid all this money.
Right.
So, spring of 1911, he was performing at the Edinburgh Festival Theatre, and he did his finale, which was called The Lion's Bride. And what he did in The Lion's Bride is he would swap places with a lion live on stage.
I mean, you are asking for trouble.
No. See, this is the thing. It's not that went wrong.
Oh, right. Okay.
So this Lion's Bride thing happened successfully, and then out of nowhere.
We're back with Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron, that's Steve, the new kid, and we're joined by the darling of Australian theatre, Sharon Millerchip. Now, a running question that we have been asking lately. If performing arts had an Olympics for amateur artists, which events would you want to watch people compete at?
Oh, God.
And what discipline would you compete at and win gold?
Oh, well, okay. I have to preface everything I say now by the fact that, I don't think that performing is a competitive art. I don't think it's a competitive sport, even though it feels like sometimes I've been in productions that have felt it like a competitive sport, and it makes it a very unpleasant experience, I can tell you. But I know that that's kind of like not looking at the question at hand.
No, because we are pitting you all against each other. But it's also like, think about it, you got Battle of the Bands to get bands signed. You got singing competitions that are all just about finding the prettiest one.
Absolutely.
Writing competitions, it's like the Pulitzer Prize and stuff like that. So it's sort of taking that, but as a 4-yearly event, whatever that is, a quad-yearly event, and amateurs, not professionals. So
look, I think if you had to dissect the things that I do, I'd probably end up a bit of an also-ran. You wouldn't put me in the singing competition. I'm not going to win it. And I'm probably not going to win the dance competition.
You got one of those introductions, Sharon, because I chose for you to get one of those introductions. Thank you very much. You're not an also-ran.
But yeah, so I think, probably I'm not an Olympic athlete in that regard. I think I'm personally, just speaking for myself, I'm like the sum of my parts that, can probably take something off the page and create something from it. But if you just dissect me, I, fall like a pillar of salt.
You'd be a judge, is what you're saying.
That's it. I'd be a judge, even though philosophically it doesn't sit well with me. I have got a bunch of awards sitting on my mantle, so
yes.
I'm obviously a hypocrite.
I didn't even get to mention, listeners at home, Sharon has like 7 or 8 awards, like Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress. You're not an also-ran.
No, I know. I'm just like, if you were to dissect me up, but I think that's what happens if you try to,
yes.
I think they're trying to do that in schools at the moment for the HSC. They want arts. They want to do some way that they can look at the arts on a spreadsheet so that they can evaluate it. And of course you kind of can't do that. It's a kinetic sort of ephemeral form unto itself.
Yeah.
So by breaking it down, I know I've gotten all deep and boring when you've asked me a really fun question about amateur Olympics.
No, now I'm picturing pitting dancers in a gladiator arena against each other.
You got to pay extra for that type of viewing, you know.
That's right.
Sorry to the dancers in the ensemble. I'm being a shithead. Clearly, no one is safe from me today. I'm having a bit of a week, a bit of a fortnight. Anyways, I've moved my script away. Well, we'll move on from that question.
Yeah, I'd like to invite you into a forever controversy here in the States. Sorry for this in advance, but do you decorate for the holidays? And if yes, how early is appropriate enough to start decorating?
Well, it's December and there's no decorating in my house. But, I think, when the kids were younger, we decorated all the time.
Yep.
And look, we'll definitely put up a tree and, we'll definitely put maybe some string lights on the deck or something.
Did your decorations dip into November or did you stick with just December?
No, I think I'm just December.
Yeah.
Again, I'm pretty good at taking things down again at the end. I've got a birthday in January and I know that once my birthday has passed, Christmas is done.
Yeah.
So by mid-January, we're tucked away and the tree is in its bag, ready to come out for next year.
On that, happy early birthday.
Yes. Well, it may not be an early birthday. I may drop it around the time of your birthday. So happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
So we'll pretend that's live.
Capricorn baby.
Not sure when this will go out because I want to get 3 episodes with Steve as sort of an introduction to the listeners with him. So anyways, you know what? It is never too early to decorate for Halloween. Oh, sorry, both of you. Oh my God, I've offended people. Oh no. I will die on that hill.
Well, as an American, you'd be really into the Halloween.
Yes, I know. I love decorating for Halloween. Last year, I was making a whole bunch of gravestones. I spent months and months and months making them. And then in the month before Halloween, my sister went into a coma. So I said to my neighbor, look, if she dies before Halloween, you can have the gravestones because I'm not putting them out the front of the house.
Oh, hun.
And she died 10 days before Halloween, didn't she? So
Oh.
they ruined them in the rain for me. Thank you very much to my neighbors. I spent months on those. Anyways, we're going to move on now. So we're going to move on to the musical because this week I've chosen Fangirl. Oh, we both went back and forth on this actually. And we eventually came up with Fangirls, which was one that neither Steve or I knew. But Steve, you are reviewing it this week in front of one of the performers. So there's absolutely no pressure at all.
Sure. And I'm not as eloquent or pun intended, all over the place that Aaron does. I just kind of wrote what I was thinking as I was listening to it. Because this was a first time listen for me.
Yeah.
I didn't know this existed. So I'm sorry about that. It hasn't come to the States, so I didn't know about it.
You're also not teenage girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as Sharon mentioned earlier, target audience is key here.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
a mixed bag for a middle-aged dad here. First and foremost, I can say that the talent in the cast was undeniable. The vocal talent on that cast album was truly impressive. And there are several standout musical numbers that stayed with me, such as Actually Dead, Night of Our Lives, Brave Thing, Justice. Those were all, just they stick in your head afterwards. And that means that's well written, well sung, well arranged all the way across the board. Energy, passion, all brought to their performances. And it was very memorable. But as a middle-aged father from the Midwest, I did find it challenging to connect with the actual story and its themes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I connected more with your character, Caroline, as far as the mom, and really worried about the daughter. I have an actual 8-year-old daughter, and just kind of picturing her in that particular, I can't remember the lead girl's name. I'm sorry, but
Edna. Yeah.
Picturing her diving that deep, and my daughter loves One Direction. She knows nothing about the kids, but she loves the songs. So kids, yeah, they're in their 20s or 30s now.
Yeah. Well, then.
That part of it I didn't really connect with. But when things started to spiral, the dad in me, really got worried for the girl. I did have to read on the line the synopsis to have kind of connect more with the songs, having not seen the stage production, which is obviously, enlightens you to a lot more. But I could totally see my daughter loving it if it comes to Broadway, if it comes to the States. That is the target audience, that young girl or teenager. Yeah, and I believe this lead girl wrote it and directed it or produced it. Is that?
That's a whole. I mean, we could do a whole podcast just on sort of her.
That's amazing.
She's just something. And she wrote all of these. She doesn't even read or play music.
Oh wow!
So she wrote all of these songs kind of in her head and taught herself a computer program so that she could kind of sing a melody and then sort of it would transpose it into a bit of sheet music.
Wow, that's amazing.
She wrote all of these things. She just said, I really want to write a musical. Bummer, I don't read or play an instrument. So how do I do that? And she's just that kind of kid that she just kind of made it happen, and then surrounded herself with incredible people who did really interesting arrangements and kind of, bolstered it, of course. But she also wrote this at, the age of 22, and it was the first time she'd written a musical, and she's something of wunderkind. And I totally get that, just listening to the soundtrack, that you wouldn't, I don't know, I guess engage with the characters or kind of know what's going on, because even when you're watching it, there's a shitload going on and it's kind of quite a convoluted storyline. So without the scenes to join all the dots, I can totally understand that it would be sort of discombobulating and hard to engage with. Absolutely. I mean, I think the exciting thing, you mentioned that target audience is younger people, which is absolutely true. So, for instance, when we played at the Opera House, something like 60% of the audience, it was either their first theatre experience, first time ever going to the theatre, and certainly their first time seeing a show at the Opera House.
That's a Sydney Opera House, Stephen.
Sydney Opera House, which is a big thing, and traditionally houses, the Australian Ballet and the, Opera Australia, and a lot of sort of more highbrow, expensive ticketed items. So
I've seen Finding Nemo. I know the Opera House.
Yep.
I love that. So, in that regard, there's lots to sort of champion about it. That recording, I think we each got paid 10 cents for that. That was us just, all getting together in this little, sort of wardrobe / recording studio.
Yep.
The three girls that played the three friends, they were all in their early 20s, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I was a good 25 years older than everybody else in the room. Yeah, they're young, early 20s. Yeah.
That terrifies me, that girls can act that way at all to each other, to themselves, and to a fanboy type of thing. That terrifies me as a father of an 8-year-old, of what's coming.
Haven't you seen Misery? No.
Oh, yeah, Misery's a great movie.
Oh, Kathy Bates.
The movie.
Yeah. I definitely didn't connect Fangirls to Misery, but now I do. I see the connection.
Well, it's just about fans, that's all. Sorry, fans, we love you.
Yeah, well, if Edna pulls out a sledgehammer, the show's taken a dark turn.
Dark turn. I know you're a metal lover, and this is definitely lives in the world of pop.
Oh yeah.
But on that level, it's 100% successful. Here is a show that's about a thing. We got a concept, Fangirls of the pop world. Does that come across in the music, in the cast album? Yes, 100%, because you have that sound. You have songs that are boy band songs, and you have this longing and yearning from the fangirls, and you hear that through the music and through the singing and the lyrics. And then obviously later on, now I'll admittedly, the second half for me was a bit murkier than the first half, which I was able to follow along. But also at the same time, I'm dealing with a whole bunch of crap out there. Because also through that pool stuff, I didn't even mention that I then had to cook a bloody roast dinner because both my parents were far too sick, and we've got a 15-year-old child that is my nephew that we're raising together that we have to feed. So I literally had to stop doing the pool to cook a roast. The first time I've ever cooked a roast in my life.
Nicely done.
Thank you. It's been a hell of a week, and I had time to go see Wicked. Oh my god. Anyway, yeah. So the second half wasn't as clear for me, but I did, from what I gathered, it did take a dark turn.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, okay, then that was completely successful in the tone and the sound of the music. Lyrically, I couldn't tell you because I wasn't following along as much, but there was just so much in this that was precisely what Yve set out to do. And that was create a musical about fangirls. And that to me is a success.
And to kind of examine the phenomenon of girl fandom and that sort of what's always regarded as hysteria, and kind of mocked and seen as lesser than and kind of embarrassing. Whereas boys can go to the football and scream and cry at the grand final and go bananas, and that's seen as legitimate and a male sort of rite of passage, whereas the girls are kind of judged quite differently. So it sort of explored that, and it explored the condition of being a teenage girl and the complexities of what that entails, and going through it in the era of social media. I mean, people say, oh, you're in the arts, it's really meaningful and you change lives. And I've always sort of thought, yes. But doing Fangirls, I think it might be the first time in my career I've really thought, I think we are actually speaking to people who need to hear something.
Yeah.
And we might be actually helping people through something. We used to do a lot of performances, obviously, for school kids and things. And I remember this one girl at the end standing up and saying, I've been to theatre shows with my school and I just sort of thought, I don't really get theatre. I don't get it. And then I see this show and I realize that, theatre just doesn't get me, but this show got me. And it sounds like a really cliche sort of marketing line, but in a real way, this show spoke to Australian teenagers because they're kind of this forgotten demographic. There's, even Steve, you talk about, Bluey and all of these things. We've got this really robust area of our arts sector that caters to young Australians. It's really, really healthy and exciting. And, we've got the Wiggles and High Five and all of that sort of thing. And then we produce really great adult work as well. But there's this sort of forgotten demographic of young people that largely don't feel catered for in live theatre. And this has done that. And maybe Wicked, in a massive way, is doing that as well, introducing gazillions of teens to theatre by, the gateway drug of Wicked the Musical movie.
It's one thing that this show does well is the friendship between those three girls and the three different levels of and different types of insecurities that they have that many, teenagers do, and how they each process it. The one who's, trying to get anything out of the divorced mom, and the other one who doesn't think she's pretty, and then the other one who has, deep obsession. That part, very well done. I mean, it comes across in the two counterpart songs that I mentioned, like the Actually Dead and Justice. They mirror each other well. And those are the two songs that I found quite terrifying as a father. You mentioned Bluey again, but I hear the Aussie accent in this album quite a bit. Yes. And I can just hear the characters of Bluey in there.
I have such a problem with the Aussie accent.
It's even a big thing for us in Australia to use our own accent. Yeah. That's something that we're just reconciling.
That's true, yeah.
We were talking about that last week with Pippa in terms of that. I just want to throw in there that it's very much on vogue with K-pop being so massive at the moment. You talked about being a shameful thing. I don't know if it's necessarily a shameful thing. It's more that half of those boy bands that they're screaming for suck. Let's face it. They're terrible. That's why we go, ugh. But also, half of the teams that people are screaming for in half of the sports also suck.
But I think that's the point. It's like, just because you don't necessarily love K-pop bands doesn't mean you need to disparage or rubbish or diminish the fact that obviously millions of young people around the world really, really do. And that in itself is just valid.
Exactly.
Like it might not kind of float your boat, but we have to acknowledge that it's a real thing. And to be showing that kind of passion and be really passionate about something and feel alive and inspired, we should probably harness that for good instead of,
And the fans themselves love you. You all should also harness that for good, talking to each other online and talking to new people who may come into the fandom and talking to other people who may not necessarily be a fan, but they love the thing. And yet you still attack them for calling Michelle Yeoh Williams Shakespeare.
Harsh, definitely harsh.
It was a promise of compliment, 100% a compliment, because she looked fantastic in it. The whole movie I thought was wonderful. But anyways,
maybe they'll cast her and Anne Juliet next. Yeah, you never know.
Maybe. Yeah. I could totally see her, because I'm all for the pantomime of gender swapping roles. I think it works on so many levels. I would absolutely love to see this, and I'm so glad that it's gotten a London production, because I think it's about time we get more original.
Yeah, it had a really successful season. Obviously, the version that we did, it had 3 productions in Australia, and then it went over to the UK, and the version that we had here, I played 7 roles. So I played a boy in a boy band, and I played the mother, and I played one of the schoolgirls, and we loved that.
That's really cool.
We loved that we were playing every different role. But obviously when they took it to the West End, it got the big showbiz treatment, and they had an ensemble and everybody just played their own roles, and it was much more of a sophisticated sort of grown-up version.
Yep.
And by all accounts, it did extremely well, and now there's, look out world, I think.
Yeah.
What teen idol posters were on your wall as a teenager? And who would be on your walls if you were a teenager today?
I'm going to age myself now, obviously. So I was, you know what? The thing that actually I remember more than the music really was like The Outsiders.
Great movie.
It was Matt Dillon, Rob Lowe, Thomas C. Howell.
The Bad Boys. Yeah.
Oh, that's my era. The pretty boys of the 80s. The Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink.
The Brat Pack.
I'm like smack bang in that era. They were me in my, formative high school years. So they were the movies that we went to every weekend. And when we went to the blue light discos, I'm dressed as Molly Ringwald from Pretty in Pink.
Oh, that is everything.
So I'm right in that demographic. My kids are like secretly really jealous that all of that stuff now, this sort of nostalgia bomb that's going on worldwide. I lived it in real time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. So I think that's who it was on. Matt Dillon. I was big on Matt Dillon.
Yeah.
I was big on Matt Dillon. I was big on Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, Matt Dillon, all those pretty boys.
Yeah, society used to love a bad boy. Not anymore.
Were they ever really bad boys? They were just sort of out of faction bad boys.
Rob Lowe, yes. Rob Lowe, he had his whole thing, which we won't mention because I don't want to get sued by Rob Lowe.
Oh, gosh. Did you see? You know what I watched? I'll go off topic for 1 second. I just watched the Coldplay. My son actually went to Coldplay the other night and just said it was like a life-changing experience, the concert. But
yeah.
Ralph Macchio, the Karate Kid,
Yep.
who was also in The Outsiders, which is what made me think of it, features in their latest single that they recorded live in front of, 80,000 people at their concerts in Melbourne.
Oh, nice.
Ralph Macchio getting up and performing on stage this song. So look for it. I can't remember. I think it's called Danny or something, but it's Coldplay's latest single and it features Ralph Macchio.
Ralph Macchio's not originally Australian, is he?
No. They said he's
No, I didn't think so.
No, he's definitely American. I mean, they sort of prefaced it by saying they showed a bit of a clip, I think, of the concert of the Karate Kid.
It's had a bit of a resurgence lately, with Cobra Kai,
Yeah.
having like 6 successful seasons and stuff. So
Yeah, so I think it's all everything's sort of coming round. But anyway, that was just a little side note. That was kind of a little magical collab.
No, that's wonderful. So it looks like we're not disturbed by the fangirls, so we're going to go to an ad break. G'day listeners, Aaron here. I'm not going to have any bloop news updates this week because unfortunately things happening in the world have taken precedence, and on this show we've had many guests from Los Angeles and some of those guests have had to evacuate, so I just wanted to send a message to them that we're thinking about them. My heart is with them. I've reached out to everybody and I've heard back from pretty much everybody so far, which is a relief, obviously. But I wanted to let our listeners know that you at home, no matter where you are in the world, you can help this situation and donate to the animal shelters around Los Angeles and Southern California, who are now taking in a whole bunch of animals that are displaced. So what I'll do is I'll put a link below to a Newsweek article that lists all the animal shelters that are currently taking in animals. All these bullshit arguments online don't matter. What does matter is that there are innocent lives involved, and much of those are animals. So let's all band together, donate to the animal shelters in Los Angeles and Southern California, and help them out in this incredibly devastating time. So again, to our past guests, I would list everyone, but I would just forget 1 or 2 people, and I don't want to forget anybody, but I have reached out to everyone, so everyone knows who they are. And to everyone listening, if you're in Los Angeles or California, my heart is with you as well, and everyone at Thrash and Treasure is thinking of you, because we all know people in that area. Anyways, on that note, back to the episode. Anyways, we're back with Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron, that's Steve, and we're joined by Sharon Millerchip. Now, my favorite question of all, what's one thing you're terrible at that everybody else can do perfectly well?
Oh my gosh, nothing. I'm great at everything. That's such a lie. I don't know.
So the honesty is refreshing.
Yes, love it.
I don't know. I should ask my daughter. What am I really bad at, Ellie? See, she can't even think of anything. Look, I married a really, really great cook because I'm shit out.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm not a good cooker. I'm not a good person at time management. Oh, Ellie says I am. There you go. See?
Yep.
Look at me struggling to find something I can't do.
Now, ask her again in 20 years, Sharon. Ask her again when she's an adult and has lived.
She is an adult.
Oh, well, there you
She's
go.
22. So.
Or ask her when she's 42 and after she's gone through all living, and then see how good it is then.
She's just trying to stay in my good books.
Is she? Oh, there you
I'm
go.
pretty bad at saving money. How's that?
I think we all are these days. But anyways.
So what places around the world inspire you the most creatively?
Look, I do love going to New York. I have to go to New York every couple of years, I think, just to get I think I talked about spam a lot. I think I was in New York this time last year. I remember I was there for Thanksgiving. I saw, like, for instance, last time I was there, I lined up for 3 hours to get a return for Stereophonic.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, I can't remember where it was. It was just before it transferred to Broadway. So it was like, way, way, way down off Broadway. And Gwyneth Paltrow was in the audience, and Jake Gyllenhaal and Jonathan Groff and all these, like, he was the show to see. And I lined up and I got a single ticket. And I thought it was just one of the most elevated theatre experiences I've ever had. And I thought, well, that's why you come to New York. You go to New York because you might just catch something like that, the genesis of, something that is just going to endure. And then soon after it transferred to Broadway, and I'm sure that it will become a film, and, it's a classic. And I got to see it sort of in that sort of really sort of early stage. So New York, I've got a lot of friends who live there, a lot of creative friends. It's just such a fertile place for new work. And I love to sort of, fill my veins with that every couple of years. Yeah.
Great place to visit.
Great place to visit. I have to say, that I've never been so sure of that as last time I was there, to be honest. And I was there for nearly 3 weeks, and I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to want to stay longer. This time round, for the first time, really, I thought it's been amazing, but I'm very glad to come home.
Yeah.
I'm very glad to come home. You have to steel yourself to be there at the moment.
They're going to have to drag me away from there. Now, you were near Jonathan Groff. Did he smell like perfection?
I didn't get close enough to get a whiff, but
no, don't get close to celebrities, people.
I went and saw Merrily on Broadway as well, and he was so great. The whole cast. I mean, I just think that I've seen, the sequential production of Merrily. It really was something great.
My son was almost in that, and he's now friends with Max, who did get the role. So they're good friends.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Oh,
wow. Oh, to be so close to greatness, but still just by association, like, that's how exciting for him. That's really great.
Broadway kids are a cute little group of friends.
Is that what he wants to do? He wants to get onto Broadway, ultimately?
Yeah, he just did the Peter Pan national tour here. So he's not the focus, but he's a good kid.
He's the real thing.
He's the only reason I go to New York, because auditions.
Gotcha. Oh, wow.
Now, when you do travel, what's your travel music? Like, what tunes and artists get you through hours of in the air?
Appallingly, I'm going to say I don't listen to a whole lot of music. Isn't that terrible?
No.
It's so terrible.
Each to their own.
I'm a bit of a podcaster.
Fully acceptable.
So I like having podcasts in my ears.
Fully acceptable. We'll approve of that, yeah.
Fully acceptable, yes. As podcasters, I'm glad that you endorse that choice.
Yep.
It's funny, isn't it? Perhaps a lot of music theatre people will tell you the same thing. They very rarely sort of listen to music theatre. I don't listen to much unless I have to sort of learn it, I guess.
Yeah, I hear that quite a fair bit.
I don't understand why that is, but it seems to be a common thing amongst performers.
Oh, a very sexist comparison. It's just like gay gynecologists. I'm so sorry.
Gay gynecologist. Is that a growth industry? Are there a lot?
I don't know. It's just every time someone says that about musical theater people will say, oh no, I don't really listen to Broadway musicals. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of like gay kind of gynecologist.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's just my Aussie reaction every time. It's ingrained in me. I'm so sorry, people. I'm incorrigible. Anyways, no, that's perfectly fine.
I did listen to, I have to say, I remember thinking, I'm going to invest in listening to Hamilton because I just knew that it was something new and it was really different, and my son is into rap, and I was curious. I really started listening out of curiosity, and I did commit to it because I do think it takes a couple of listens to.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Kind of, I don't know, just to reconcile the style of it and everything. And I did become quite obsessed with it. And I think I'm not alone there. I think a lot of people sort of went on that Hamilton journey.
And I wrote that off as a fad and then actually gave it a listen, and it blew my mind like everybody else.
Didn't
Yeah.
blow my mind. Sorry.
Oh, I love Hamilton.
Yeah.
I was good, but I just. So, what to you, Sharon, is the sound of Aussie musicals? So, obviously, Broadway musicals, you can identify them by the sort of jazzy sort of sound. There's a storytelling quality to them. British musicals, you can tell because there's a sort of epic quality to them. What is ours? Do we have one?
Yeah, I think we're struggling to find. I mean, I think we're getting closer.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of had a bit of an identity issue for decades and decades, because it's so part of we just import these shows like polished diamonds, and then we get taught how to do them, and then they say just do that, and so there hasn't really been a culture of kind of nurturing creative talent to create our own shows, I think. And there's something potentially about music theatre, that earnestness, that I think is a bit ick to Australian sensibilities.
There's the country that gave us Muriel's Wedding and Kath and Kim and all these like really down to earth earnest, but I get what you mean there, that it's a put on.
But I think in a way they're kind of they're the anti-earnest. That's what they're trying to do. Like, I'm not saying that they kind of actually go, Muriel's Wedding and Strictly Ballroom and The Castle and all these sorts of iconic Australian movies. They actually go so far the other way, so they overstep for this kind of slightly sort of camp, and yet the film versions have got this lightness of touch that never quite transcends into music theatre, which can be, if not handled beautifully, can be sort of heavy-handed.
We overdo it.
Yeah, so I think we kind of struggle. We're getting really better. I'm dying to see My Brilliant Career in Melbourne. By all accounts, it may be our first really serious grown-up sort of book blockbuster potential musical. I know we've had Priscilla and things like that, but they are sort of
Eureka. Sorry.
Seven Little Australians. Having said it, we've got great people like Yve Blake. We've got Max McKenna, who's writing really, really interesting stuff. Obviously, Eddie Perfect, Tim Minchin, obviously. Dean Bryant or Sheridan Harbridge. There's a lot of really interesting work coming out, but there's something irreverent about the Australian sensibility that we try to bring into music theatre, and somehow they do kind of butt heads a little bit. So it's a really interesting sort of tightrope I think we walk to find the perfect Australian musical that one ticks the boxes for all of our sensibilities, which is not taking ourselves seriously, not being too earnest, not being overly sentimental, sort of taking the piss. So they're all the things that make us Australian, but we want to do all things that music theatre does, which is move us, transcend us, has something to say. So it's about finding the confluence of both those things. And I think we've struggled to do it, but I think we're closer than we've ever been. There's some beautiful Australian songs that I think are just under-recognised, like, for instance, Max Lambert's I'll Hold On from Miracle City. Oh, my gosh, like the most perfect song. Dean Bryant's As Far As the Eye Can See, the beautiful Eddie Perfect, the song Eddie Perfect wrote for King Kong. These are all Australian names. Sorry if you see.
That's right.
Incredible. I mean, we know that Tim Minchin is a genius too. So these are the people who are kind of kicking goals already, but there's a lot of up and comers, more than there ever has been. I think we've got more confidence in what we've got to say than we ever have. So
Good.
I'd say watch this space. In the next 5 to 10 years, we'll be really growing up as an industry.
About time.
I mean, we stopped importing our leads sort of, well, we still do it. Occasionally now, but we stopped exclusively importing our leads from the UK and everything sort of in the 50s and 60s, but we still import all our shows largely. I mean, 90%, 95% of the shows, musicals playing in Australia are international imports.
Yeah, you got to blow fly.
I know. It's
keep
driving
saying
me
it.
mad.
Me too, because I just want to get a tea towel and just do the Karate Kid thing where he flicks it. Is it the Karate Kid?
I need one of those electric spotters.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think watch this space.
Yeah. Oh, good. And not only that, that stands shoulder to shoulder with these brilliant musicals from America and Britain that we've been getting for 100 years now. Like,
of course. I mean, they're brilliant, and obviously by the time they get here, they are schmick. They've done Out of Town. They've done off-Broadway, they've done Broadway. They really get here in their finest form. Then what happens is they come here and they don't want them tampered with. They don't want them touched. They don't want them messed around with. Because they've arrived at the perfect model.
Yeah.
And so they just teach it to us and say, do this. And that's great, but it doesn't harness an industry.
No.
It harnesses an industry of practitioners, but not of creators.
Yes.
And that's where I think we have work to do.
Yes. So I'm big on that myself.
As an American, I don't see the problem.
Yeah, so anyways, what's your question then?
I get it. And neither do audiences, to be honest. Audiences don't, I mean, and I think at the end of the day, producers are putting up the money and they just want to sell tickets. They just want bums on seats. And so they go, well, why? Is it in our interest to create, unless we're going to take an Australian product and take it to Broadway. But, and that's what they've done with Moulin Rouge, obviously.
Well, no, it started there. That it was the other way around. We didn't. It should have started here.
That's right. But it isn't Australian. Well, no, Alex Timbers and American creatives, but Australian investment perhaps.
Well, true. Yeah,
Australian producers.
Carmen.
So that was kind of like a mixed international start for Moulin Rouge. I'm not familiar with. I mean the movie, and I've never seen the stage show, but I mean I'm not familiar with the origins of that stage show.
Well, I guess the movie, it was an American movie, but it was directed by Baz Luhrmann, an Australian. So it always had an Australian sort of connection. But then Global Creatures, which is an Australian production company, who I did Strictly Ballroom with, and they did King Kong.
Okay.
And a bunch of other, Walking with Dinosaurs, and a bunch of really sort of large-scale productions. They put their money into doing Moulin Rouge, but they did it in America, and they did it with exclusively American creative teams. So we had Alex Timbers, and everything was done internationally, and then they sort of brought it home.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a hybrid. It's a hybrid show. But it's still playing on Broadway and the West End now. But actually, is it still? Yeah, it's still on Broadway.
Last I was there, yeah.
And shout out to Simon Burke.
Simon Burke and Bert Labonte and David Harris. So our David Harris is playing it on Broadway at the moment. So
I've actually had both Simon and Bert on twice. I had Simon on twice while he was doing Moulin Rouge, but Bert once while he was doing Moulin Rouge. So it was sort of separately the first time, and then I had them on together. So because they're
so great. They're like such a great double act. I love both of them. They've been my leading men several times, both of them. Yeah.
Oh, I can say they've been my leading men twice. But anyways.
Yeah. So you've had the experience of playing both Velma and Roxy in Chicago. How difficult was it to like swap and play a different role within those two iconic roles? And was either one more enjoyable?
It's interesting. When I initially auditioned, I thought, well, I'm a Roxy. I auditioned as Roxy, and in the audition process, they said, "Oh, we see you as a Velma. We'd like you to come back and read for Velma." And I thought, wow, that's
such a compliment.
That's so weird, but it was interesting.
That's such an ego boost to hear. I would be like, oh, thank you. I'd much rather be a Colin Farrell than Zac Efron. Christ, sorry.
There's nothing about auditions that feel good. They always just feel daunting.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So it was just, at the time, it was just more material to learn. Anyway, but then playing Velma, and I thought, oh, well, it's the role. She's got the big number. I absolutely loved it for a singer, dancer, actor. There's just no better written role, is it? It was such a thrill. And then 10 years later, they'll bring it back, and we found out that Caroline O'Connor was playing Velma.
Yep, friend of the show.
And we thought, oh, well, that's okay. Now we want to see Sharon for Roxy. And it's one of those things I thought, oh, no, you don't. No, you don't. You just want to get me in the audition room and make me jump through a million hoops, and you're not really going to get it. And I just kept saying, no. And I promise you, it sounds like I'm making this up, but it was kind of like they'd been through the entire audition process, and the American creatives who'd come over to the audition literally were going to be in the country for like one more day. And they said, just come in. And I love it when it gets to this stage, because they go, just come in. It's not an audition. Just come in, have a sing. Yes, do the monologue. And I went, oh, fuck it. Okay. And then I literally came in and did it. And it was only when I looked at it when I thought, okay, learn it. Learn that monologue. And I went, oh, this is amazing. What an amazing role. What an incredible role. I so identify with this. It all just came to me. I thought, oh, yes, I can't believe I didn't see it before. And then read it, and then they pretty much gave it to me on the spot. That was something that was meant to be. And then I preferred Roxy, because I felt like there was possibly more of a character journey, because she's got a lot of the scenes. She does that huge monologue, which was much more, breaking that fourth wall and kind of engaging with the audience. And I hadn't really ever done that before. So for me, probably Roxy has been something that I ended up enjoying more.
Very cool.
That's because you played hard to get, and you had them eating out of the palm of your hands when you walked in there. Finally, after them begging you, Sharon, you played them.
I know. I played it perfectly. It was so not my intention to do so, but it is a lesson. If you can hold your nerve, 95% of the time that will never work.
No.
They'll just say, "Oh, you don't want to come in an audition? Okay, bye." It was, although I have to say Love Never Dies was very similar.
Yeah. Oh, really? Well, perfect segue, because I do have to ask about that. We've only got a few more questions and we'll round up. I have to ask about Love Never Dies because I did see it in Melbourne. And I ask this out of all respect, out of all love for the production, for everyone who worked on it, for Glenn Slater, our two-time guest and friend of the show, who's going to come back for a third time in the future, unless I offend him now. What was the vibe like when you were doing that after the reaction in London? Were you guys sort of hopeful that maybe we could make this work, or was there a skepticism in the air that, what are we doing?
No, we just put all our faith in Simon Phillips. As far as we were concerned, it was a reimagining of it.
Yep.
And largely it was. However, it was still a fraught experience. So we had Angelo Weber in the room.
Yep.
Angelo Weber, he was just very steadfast about things that he wanted kept in the show. And I think Simon, because he's such a charming negotiator, Simon Phillips, he's trying to sort of manage and massage Andrew's expectations. Well, we called him the Lord, actually.
Mm-hmm.
The Lord's expectations with great storytelling and ways that we could sort of maneuver things around to make it work.
Yep.
And I think he made a lot of ground, but it sort of went as it was still an imperfect piece. It looked and sounded immaculate. Honestly, it's one of the most visually spectacular, beautiful, lush things you'll ever see. And obviously the music is incredible as well. I had to play, Meg Giry, that in the final scene, I have to declare my love for the Phantom, who I don't actually share the stage with once in the whole show. So I love him so much that I try to kill myself after I've already tried to kill this child, and then I kill the heroine, and then I run away.
No, correction. You make Christine die.
I make Christine die. All in the space of one 15-minute scene at the end of the show. So joining a lot of dots. So I say it was an imperfect piece of theatre, and it possibly will remain so, but an incredible experience. I mean, I just love being part of that. I mean, I talk about the industry growing up in Australia, and that, even though it wasn't an Australian production per se, it did feel like we had a creative hand in building it. We were able to put our own stamp on the performances, and then we did get to record it live and put it out on Blu-ray and everything.
It was much better live.
Oh yeah, it was great. It was better live. I mean, I think one of the things you miss on the Blu-ray is scene changing. When the set turned, the set was kind of this giant roller coaster, and on this triple revolve thing. It's pretty spectacular.
I've yet to see Love Never Dies, and I know there's a version on Broadway HD.
That's what Sharon's in.
That's what I'm in. Yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
That is the one.
Yeah.
Oh well, I'm gonna give that a watch.
Well, wait till we do it on the show.
Right. Yeah, do it on the show. I mean, it was an incredible experience. But the reason I didn't think they'd cast me was that I'd played Meg Giry in the original Australian production in 1942.
Oh, okay.
And then they wanted to bring Love Never Dies back, and they said, we'd love you to play Meg Giry again, but it's only, and I think it was like 25 years later, but it's only meant to be 10 years later in the play. So I thought, they're not going to cast this old bird as Meg Giry, and it turns out they did.
That's all right. It was 25 years later, but you didn't look a day over 24 years later. Sorry.
You're going to get struck by lightning.
I am going to get struck by lightning. No, you didn't look bloody 25 years later. I don't think I saw you. No, I didn't see the 1990-91 production of Phantom, but I saw the 98 come back around.
That was an incredible experience too, obviously, to be in Hal Prince.
Yeah.
I auditioned for him in New York, in his office in Rockefeller Plaza, and, Anthony Warlow, and all of that.
Goodness gracious me. No, I quite loved it. I said to Glenn myself that there was just a few problems with the book in terms of the story of it just being too soap opera.
Yeah.
I don't think the child needed to even exist, which is something I didn't say to him. So I kind of like that you tried to kill the character off, but I don't think he needed to be there.
I thought Meg actually was one of the most interesting characters in the show.
She was.
I think that she was fantastic.
Yeah.
It kind of didn't all make sense, but she was definitely interesting. My biggest gripe with the show, I think, is that Phantom, you don't know. Is he real? Is he a ghost? Is he supernatural? Is he a spectre? And he never touches her. You know, you've got this incredible romance and it's so sort of erotic. I mean, I remember Anthony Warlow having to just almost touch her neck with his hand. He never does. And it was so kind of hot and spooky and cool. And then in the first 5 minutes of Love Never Dies, they're kind of gyrating and making out. This Phantom is just a dude. He's just a guy.
He's been living in America now. He's been living in America for 10 years. He's turned American, that's all it is.
Yeah, a boy.
But,
And he owns a bunch of theaters. He's an entrepreneur and he's just a humanoid kind of mortal. And I thought that was a big thing to give up. That was just so special about the Phantom of the Opera.
yeah.
That we didn't have in Love Never Dies. And I think fundamentally that changed, it just changed the whole nature of the piece.
Yeah.
I hate to admit this, but I saw the movie Phantom first before.
Oh, really?
I did.
Oh, no, it's much better seeing it live.
My wife was appalled, and she you know, as soon as it came to Atlanta, we went and saw it, and it was an amazing stage show on the tour at that time. But I did see the movie first.
I've never seen the movie. I still haven't seen it.
I enjoyed it.
I can't bring myself. You know, when it came out in 1990, I mean, it opened in Australia in 1990, so it'd been on Broadway way before that. I mean, at the time, it was incredible. You know, it was so cutting edge and new technology and using hydraulics and vari-lights and
It was.
you know, illusions and things like that.
But when you think of it, that is hilarious because the original production in London used the 1800s stage mechanics for all those special effects. Nothing was technologically advanced until it moved out of London and came to the rest. And we all had to catch up in terms of all that technology, which was actually 100 years old. That's why I think it's so funny.
I remember because I was dating, you know, the head elects.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were all taken over to New York to learn how to do this new theatre.
Yeah.
You know, this is how you did theatre now. And they had to learn how the hydraulic worked and these fancy new lights that moved on their own and changed colour on their own. It was like, it was weird.
Wonderful.
What was one performance where you felt you left it all on the stage and walked away with a spring in your step?
Look, I mean this. I don't mean to sound weird, but I'm always leaving it on the stage. I find that I can't not do that.
Yeah.
All of them is a great example, you know.
And it was not a great example. I don't always leave with a spring in my step, though.
Yeah.
But I do think playing charity in Sweet Charity for the production company, which I think is a bit like the Encore Season Steve that they have in New York. So that was, I would say, in my entire career, it's the feat I'm most proud of. All in 10 days, I learnt 9 production numbers and pulled that off. And yeah, I would say that for me is the show that I think, wow, I'd freaking pull my finger out on that one.
Exactly. You're not an also-ran, Sharon. You're also kicked ass. That's what you are.
You put all of my skills together and there's something really exciting. It's only if you dissect them that you go, well, you know, I'm the sum of many parts.
Yeah. Anyways, if you could redirect, redesign, and completely rejuvenate a long-running production on Broadway or its 18th Australian tour, what musical would you want to refresh?
Oh my gosh. You should have given me some of these ahead of time. I could have, you know, had put me on.
Oh, we're not that nice. We're not that nice. Sorry.
Maybe this is a boring answer, but I think of it only because you're talking about Chicago. But the, you know, stripped back Anne Reinking version of Chicago, you know, has been done a lot. And probably we don't need another production of Chicago in Australia for a very, very long time. But I think when it does come back, to actually do a full-scale production of Chicago set in the period in which it was written about, and with a full lush set and costuming, I think could be really exciting.
That could be. I completely agree.
So ironically, it's like to be innovative, we might go back to
being traditional.
Go back to basics.
Yeah.
Before it was coolified.
Yeah.
You know, which when it first came out was very innovative and interesting and cool and sexy and bold, but less so 30 years down the line.
Yeah. We want different things, and when we are getting the same thing, we want different.
Yeah.
We don't want to see the same Wicked.
I hear you, girlfriend.
We want to see something new. That was what was great about the film, is even though they invoked the stage designs here and there, barely saw a fucking clock in the whole film. Barely saw a whole clock. The clockwork you saw was on the train tracks, and that was it.
Right.
It didn't invoke the visualization of the musical, is what I'm saying. We do want to see different things. I love that we had the 50th tour of Greece, but it was an Australian director and new designs. It was something new. It wasn't a transfer of the UK or Broadway productions. We got something new.
I know, which is great, but we also set ourselves impossible standards. If you reimagine a new, version of this show, it didn't have any sort of time to develop or find its feet or try new things out. We kind of just stuck it onto a main stage in Australia and said, ta-da!
Yeah.
And then if people go, oh, I didn't quite enjoy it as much as the original, you go, well, you need to nurture new work.
Yeah.
And we get impatient. I think we're impatient in Australia. And producers understandably just want to sell tickets, and I get that.
Yeah, well, we totally get it. But there's the only way things become favorites to make lots of money is that they were new to begin with.
I think so, yeah.
So we do need new things here and there and everywhere. But anyways, speaking of which, Stephen, you are very quiet. So you're going to throw in the last question now. We're going to round this up because we've gone 20 minutes over. I'm so sorry to you both. That's my fault for ranting.
No, I'm a ranter too.
Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, thank God.
Prior to your amazing career, what's the most unusual job you've ever had?
Was it selling wine?
This is a true story. I never sold wine.
Oh.
I don't know how I've done this. I've actually never had a job outside of the industry except for when I was a teenager and I pumped petrol at McCar's Creek petrol station. I think we got like $4 an hour. And on the weekends, we used to get $1 extra an hour if we pumped petrol in our bikini.
Oh, my God. What?
So when I talk about how the world has turned since the 80s, that's what I mean.
Oh, we usually leave on something fun there. That's not.
So there you go.
Speaking of disturbed.
There in the good old days.
Goodness me.
When 17-year-old girls were filling up the, your gas tank with petrol in a bikini. Yeah, falling.
Goodness
but yeah, that was
me.
the most unusual job I've had. Considering I dress up for a living, that was still one of the most unusual things I've ever done.
You did start, I believe, age 10 or something was your first professional credit.
Yeah.
What was I doing at 10 years old? I was doing theatre. I was doing amateur theatre. I just started. But yes, no. Thank you so much for joining us, for saying yes.
Oh, thank you so much. I think we travelled a lot of ground. I hope I was a little bit interesting. You can cut and paste and make me sound more articulate than I am, possibly. So
I cut out a lot of ums and ahs, and when people stumble, I make everyone sound human and clear and concise. And
right. And that is a very Australian thing. We do lots of and like and yeah, nah.
Yeah.
That's the life of every podcast editor, though. I mean,
it is.
Right.
Quick, snappy conversation. And, because we are long episodes. So I truly do appreciate it, especially with your life at your feet. I know because my life is at my feet too at the moment.
No, I mean, I'm pretty good now. I'm like nearly 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah.
But I was actually on my way to opening night of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, were you?
Yeah. I was in the car, literally had the key in the ignition. I went, oh, fuck, I've left my phone on charge. And then I did what I tell my kids never, ever to do, which is go around the side of the house, which is on a cliff face.
Oh, is it?
Like a ledge, bushy ledge that goes down, I don't know, 60 feet.
Oh, shit.
And I went, and I've done it hundreds of times, but I had my car keys in my hand and I just didn't hold on as I went right around the corner, which is only on about, 2 inches of purchase.
No.
And I just fell backwards and fell into the bush, but I came a cropper on this metal railing that I didn't even know was there because it was hidden in the bush.
Now you do.
And that's what I smashed my ribs on. But it was about 8 to 10 feet down. But that's what stopped me.
Yeah. God, that saved your life.
My car keys went all the way to the bottom and I knew I'd done something straight away. I couldn't breathe. So yeah, anyway, it was all a big drama. We had to get the neighbours, they couldn't get me out because I couldn't move. Had to go to hospital, spend a couple of nights.
Damn.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, there you go.
I hope you feel better.
Oh, I feel a lot better now. I couldn't even talk for ages because I couldn't take a breath.
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty good now.
Oh.
Yeah. Lots of endones.
Yeah, but no, that just makes me appreciate you giving up your time so much more. Truly,
It's so good. It's been the highlight. I haven't been able to work. Haven't done anything. So it's been my first foray into working. I'm back into the 6th building tomorrow. Really nice to meet you in real life, Aaron, and lovely to meet you, Steve.
Yep.
Nice to meet you. Well, it was a pleasure.
Sorry, I called you Stephen. That's a very Australian thing, isn't it?
That's it. Just before we let you go, where can people find you on the social medias?
Instagram and
Yep.
Facebook, still do those. I've got my website that I'm extremely lazy about updating.
Aren't we all?
But if you want to do a little cruise through my career, there's lots of pictures.
Yep, and I'll put all that in the details below, and I'll type up your introduction's handwritten at the moment, but I'll type it up and send it across to you. So
I'd love that. I'll keep that as a little keepsake.
no worries.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aniris.
All right. Lovely to see you both. Have a good night's sleep, Stephen. Far away.
Have a good night.
You take care. We shall see you next time. Uru!
Like quicksand!
We're going to move on very quickly. I'm going to cut all that out.
I never made it through Grease 2.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
You're lucky you didn't tell me before I said yes to you coming on the show.